It's like book club, but it's more than books, and it's not quite a club. Okay, so before watching this movie, I was like aware of Jacob Elordi, and now after watching it 3 times, genuinely like a quarter of my TikTok storage is now edits that I have saved from that movie. It was phenomenal.
As a rare TikToker and somebody who marginally doesn't even know what edits are, can you explain that to me?
I genuinely think edits are such a fun... I could go on a separate talk about this, and honestly, I want to bring this back for a later episode now, because I do think edits are a form of storytelling, but essentially it's just people take clips from the movie and then put them with a song. So like, you know when you were like 8 in your mom's minivan and you're in the back seat and like the song's playing and the rain is falling and you're like staring out the window, that's a modern edit basically. You take a scene from something and then put it to a song that you think they would like cry looking out a rainy car window, and then people on TikTok just eat it up, myself included.
But also, sometimes edits are so separate from like a real thing. Like sometimes it's a Frankenstein edit and it's supposed to be beautiful and you're supposed to cry watching it. And sometimes it is, oh my goodness, what was the most recent? It was Regina from Mean Girls and Roderick from Diary of a Wimpy Kid. So sometimes it is completely insane ships that people put together for some reason and it blows up.
That's a separate thing. That is a crack ship. That's a crack ship. I am so grateful that in the year 2025, crack ships are reemerging. They're my favorite. But that's what people... A video that has been edited doesn't make it an edit. It's when it is like a movie clip that has sound on it. That's what people mean when they refer to like an edit. So the crack ships, I would argue, are in a different category of social media.
Fair enough. You know more than me. All I'm saying is the girls that get it, and the girls that don't.
Okay, wait, no, I have a qualifying question here. If I was to go to YouTube search by the year 2006 and find Shadow the Hedgehog clips that are edited to Linkin Park, does that count as an edit?
That counts as an edit.
Okay, now we're speaking my language. So, all right, I've become so numb. Okay.
Ugh, okay. Hi, listener. If it hasn't become obvious, this episode is focusing on the new Frankenstein movie directed by Del Toro, released in the beginning of November 2025. And yeah, some of my main thoughts after watching it 3 times, I guess right up front, is can you argue that this is a faithful adaptation? What does a faithful adaptation mean in the context of this movie? Obviously, I think one of the main things that Del Toro does is that he switches the themes. So in the book, the primary theme is about the dangers of unchecked ambition and this idea that man should not be playing God. We should not be creating life the way that Victor does. And the secondary theme is kind of a focus on life and innocence and the creature's experience. In the movie, those things are flipped, and the movie is really a love letter to having a zeal for life. Like, it is about choosing to be passionate about your life.
I mean, I believe that a movie can be a faithful adaptation without holding core scenes and moments that a book or whatever work it's being derived from holds. But I almost think that to be a faithful adaptation, what that means is sticking true to the themes. But that being said, I mean, I watched the movie, I read the book. I feel like to do a Frankenstein movie exactly like the book wouldn't work very well. And the way that Del Toro used visual storytelling to kind of shift, it didn't create a new theme, but it pulled out a more subtle theme that was in the book, and it just decided to amp that up more to make the storytelling better. And for that reason, I do think it's a successful adaptation despite being different.
So before we came here to record today, last night, I did some research onto Del Toro as a figure, as a movie maker, as like an artist and a storyteller. And the more research I did about Del Toro, the more that I realized it's wrong to even judge him by the aspects of creating an adaptation. I mean, he literally did. He literally made Frankenstein. However, almost every movie that he's made is about the exact same theme that he's been trying to capture his whole career. I mean, just recently, his Pinocchio movie came out on Netflix, and I didn't get to catch the full thing before we came to record today, but I was watching parts of it, and I was like, oh my God, this is just Frankenstein. His Pinocchio movie is the exact same themes, but for kids.
I'm going to take your word for it because I didn't see Pinocchio, but I do with Shape of Water. I have to confess I didn't see that one either, but I do know it was the same sort of vibe of becoming sympathetic to like the sea monster in it. And so that doesn't surprise me either that he does use kind of the same common theme and just different elements of the story to tell that same story, if that makes sense. And yeah, I mean, back to Lily's point, I think with shifting it, with focusing on more subtle themes from the book, I think that Del Toro with the movie is really just pushing the creature to be this object of sympathy for the audience, and that he's really, really pushed the creature being a metaphor for neglected children and for children of narcissistic parents. And that was always there in the book. That was kind of an unspoken thing. Del Toro just went from being unspoken to like shouting it at you the whole movie. And there are so many lines where it's so on the nose. But like the creature talking to Frankenstein saying, you know, the miracle is not that I should speak, but that you should ever listen. You didn't make something, you made someone. You only listen when I hurt you. Like that's such a common experience now for children of narcissists. And I think that's part of why the movie is doing so well right now. Because it's like you're saying, like he's always done this, but this is definitely his most mainstream successful movie so far, upon release at least. And I think that's part of the reason why.
And as for using a theme multiple times, the lovely thing about themes is that you can go through so many different stories to get the same theme. That's not going to necessarily make it boring or unoriginal. And I think that Frankenstein is such an interesting base to use for a theme of loving life and embracing it and seeing how precious it is. And in a way that it might seem more palatable for children if it's a Pinocchio story. I think that it's something that's applicable, will always be applicable of loving life. And I don't think we're ever going to stop seeing movies like that. And it's super, I really loved the way that he went about it now.
Okay, wait, let's dive right into what the differences between the book and the movie are. So, okay, correct me if I'm wrong here. Lily's our book expert because she just read it. In the book, Frankenstein, he makes Frankenstein. I'm sorry, we're getting terminologies. Victor Frankenstein makes the monster. Who's the monster? Is it Frankenstein or is it Frankenstein? All right, so Victor Frankenstein makes the monster. And he's actually kind of a nice guy in the book. Like, Lily, check me on that.
Well, Victor Frankenstein, at least, he's not a likable protagonist at all. He is not a nice guy. He is just kind of young and egotistical in a way that, I mean, I feel like someone with youth and their future ahead of them can only be. And he's sort of, it is what Ansley was saying before about unchecked ambition and just wanting to do things because he can. In Del Toro's movie, he has like this purpose of his mother dies, so he is like, I will defeat death. I will be better than my father, who was a doctor, which was never a part of the book at all. His mother does die, but that's not what's prompting this sort of need to create life. I think he goes through professors and stuff that sort of make him feel like a need to be better and do better, but we don't like him. All he does is pity himself after he creates the creature. All he is like, woe is me. Oh my gosh, my life is so bad. You wouldn't believe all the troubles that I'm going through. And oh, there's so much beauty around me, but I can't even appreciate it because my life is terrible. And he's not thinking twice about the creature that he created or the life that he created. He was never likable, but he is still very different. He's unlikable in a different way than the movie Frankenstein is, because in the movie, you hate him because he almost seems to see the life that he's created. He gives the creature a chance at life and deliberately chooses to do these cruel things to the creature, like lock him up and show him the sun, but then take it away. There are these moments that you hate Victor Frankenstein more, whereas in the book, it's more of like, you are just like an arrogant asshole who doesn't have any like idea of what you're doing, and you're so naive and young, and how stupid can you possibly be? You're just more frustrated than you are like, no, you're actually a bad person.
I think part of it too, because I 100% agree that the movie Victor is so much more unlikable. I didn't like book Victor. I hate movie Victor. Like, there is a very big stretch in the degree that I dislike him. But I think part of it is that book Victor, yes, he's arrogant in creating the creature, but that's kind of where his arrogance ends. The rest of it, the pity party, I agree with you, but that's coming from a place of like self-centeredness and not immediate arrogance. I think movie Victor is so like smarmy and arrogant about everything, and that's why so much more of his character is unlikable, because I mean, part of it is that every relationship he could have in the movie he ruins because he believes that he's entitled to something different than what it is. So like, he could have had a friendly relationship with Elizabeth, and we see that in like the butterfly scenes and them talking about science. They could have had a positive relationship, but because he felt entitled to her in a romantic way, he ruined it. With his brother, you see William like want to connect with him and be involved, but because he has this like competition, jealousy thing going on with him, he ruins it. With Harlander, he could have had like a really neat entrepreneurial science aristocracy sort of relationship and ruined it because of pride. He didn't want to let somebody else in. I mean, the line in the movie is like, I work alone. Like, he's such an asshole about it. He's so arrogant with everything beyond just the creation of the creature. And that's why I think the movie version of him is so much less likable.
That being said, I kind of disagree, as far as I think that book Victor doesn't have any redeeming qualities besides the fact that he is young and arrogant like that, like where you kind of pity him. But movie Victor did try to turn around when the building went up in flames, when the creature was inside, after he had set himself on destroying this creature. He does turn back to try to save the creature. And there is also a moment where at the end of the movie, I feel like Victor Frankenstein recognizes that what he did was wrong. And even though it's cheap and it was on his deathbed, which I don't think, I of course you're going to regret your mistakes when you're on your deathbed. I don't think that he wouldn't have realized that if he wasn't dying, but it probably would have taken longer. There's still this moment where there is closure between the creature and Victor Frankenstein. Even if Victor Frankenstein was doing it for a selfish reason, I almost feel like I saw the creature feeling like he was being seen by Victor for the first time at the end of the movie. And that is a closure that that book creature never got. And I mean, book Victor dies in his path for revenge, and he just dies a hateful man and has no idea where this creature that he created, he just knows that the creature was hunting him and is probably going to stop.
I agree with you for the most part. I think you have me with him like returning to the fire, because there's really I don't think there's an immediate explanation for that other than the tiniest bit of remorse and regret. But as far as the ending scene, I felt very much like it was redemption my first 2 watches of it. But my third watch was with my mom, and she loved the movie. Hi, Mom. She cried for like the last 45 minutes of the movie straight, and then couldn't talk about it for the rest of the day because she kept tearing up. And to her, in that moment, when Victor, he apologizes, and then he says to the creature to like say his name again, like he did in the beginning. And through her tears, she's like, that's still so arrogant. And it made me think about it more, and it shifted my opinion of it a little bit, because I think that choice of, I like the way you put it, of the creature gets closure that he didn't in the book in that scene, even if it is coming from a selfish place from Victor. But I think him receiving closure has nothing to do with Victor's character so much as Del Toro shifting the themes. Because in that moment, if we're still paying attention to the metaphor of like narcissism and parents, what happens a lot of the time for children of narcissists is that you acknowledge who your parent is, but when they're warm to you and they still show you love, you know that it's coming from a bad place, but you choose to accept it because it's an imitation of what it should be. I'm trying to think of the right word for it. It's like a false sense of love that you should be getting from that parent. And so in that moment, they're acting selfishly because Victor wanted to be absolved of his crimes, but the creature's accepting it anyways because it looks like love from his father.
That is such a beautiful take of it. So do you not think that do you think the creature is only accepting this sort of false closure because it's easier for the creature to bear that? Or do you think the creature actually feels seen and absolved by the end of the movie?
I think yes and no. I think it's one of those things where you can acknowledge the advice is good advice. This idea of if you can't die, you just have to live. And he's accepting it, he's taking it, he's running with it because he knows that it's solid advice. But because it's coming from Victor, I think a part of him still knows that Victor is a selfish man. He was his entire life. And it's like you're saying, it's probably only because he's dying. And for the first time, he's actually listened to the creature's tale. And now he looks like an ass in front of the captain. And a big thing with narcissists is trying to save their pride. And so ultimately, in one lens of looking at it, his son embarrassed the crap out of him in front of the stranger. And now he's saving face on his deathbed.
I agree with that, and I actually think that's a beautiful point of how it seems in a way that at the end the monster forgives him, but it wasn't a worthy forgiveness. However, I feel like a lot of it's the infantilization of the creature that happens in this movie. I mean, the biggest one, I think, is that, so in the book, the creature asks for a bride or for a mate, and then Victor eventually refuses, causing the creature to kill Victor's friends and family. In the movie, the same sequence sort of happens. It gets changed up a little bit, but his friends and family die by accident. And this is, to me, the biggest thematic change is that in the book, there's this idea of life isn't worth living if you exist without love. By denying the creature or by denying the monster a mate, then thus it is living without love, and thus it's kind of expected that it would lash out this way. In the movie, all of this, the creature killing Victor's friends and family happens by accident, and it loses that core. And so we get to the end where the creature gets to explain his story and all of this, and it ends so much weaker to me because the creature was never wrong. The creature was never in the wrong. The creature was so never in the wrong that even though it showed up and killed 8 crewmates of that ship, and then it goes and tells its story, even the captain was like, "Oh my God, that was such a beautiful and touching story. Let him go. It doesn't matter that he killed 8 of my crewmates." I don't know. I feel like this really gets diminished by just how perfect the creature is presented.
I have a couple of points to that. Little ones first. Just you've consistently said that the creature was looking for a mate. That's what he's requested. But I think it's so much more based than that because he only ever asked for companionship. And yes, he had Elizabeth, but I love the way Del Toro never even fully made their relationship clear if it was a romantic attraction. And there was definitely the influences of her being the bride of Frankenstein in that final wedding scene where she's in her dress. But their relationship stays ambiguous for most of it. But then with the old man, that was a fatherly relationship. I don't think that he wanted romantic attraction. He just wanted somebody to spend his life with, not in a romantic sense. And I think that that's a really important part of it that Victor Frankenstein hid behind this idea of a mate for reproductive purposes. But to your bigger point of it feeling like the creature was perfect and never did anything wrong, I think that's another, I can understand what you're saying, but I think it's another thematic change because that's the point. The creature didn't do anything wrong. And he had such a horrible life that he didn't deserve simply because people didn't understand him when they looked at him. And now he's left trying to live the rest of his life with this damage, and everybody involved in damaging him is gone. He doesn't get any closure, any sense of accountability from any of these people. He just has to take what happened to him and try to find a way to live with it. And that's what children of narcissists do.
The more I try to reconcile the differences between the book and Del Toro's movie in my mind, the more frustrated I get because I understand why Del Toro is doing the things that he's doing. And yes, in some ways, I miss the creature actually turning into a little bit of a monster. I miss the creature doing things out of revenge because he has been raised in a society that has treated him like a monster, and so he is going to act like one. It takes away that sort of infantilization that happens when you have a creature that is only ever targeted for no reason at all than looking different. But I understand why that needed to be like the change in this movie. It would have been too much to probably deal with if the creature had murdered William out of pure hatred for Frankenstein and realizing that William was Frankenstein's little brother and being like, well, I'm just gonna kill you then, and would be so much harder to reconcile the creature killing all of Victor Frankenstein's family and friends because Victor Frankenstein refuses to create any companionship for him. I will say one thing that I think the movie could have done that missed was when we first hear the creature's story, the creature is not coming at this in a sense of, make me a mate, please, make me companionship. He is more calling out Victor of, you created me and then you left me and you were wrong for that. And that is most of what he wants, is just for Victor to recognize the terrible things that he has put the creature through and trying to hold Victor accountable for his actions. And only at the end does he say, well, you created me this way. I look so horrible that society doesn't want to deal with me. I am hated by everyone. I'm despised. And at the very least, give me some sort of companionship. That way I do not have to be alone, and I will go away forever. I will go to, I think he said South America. Like, I will go away to South America. You will never see me again. And I just want to have somebody to experience life with the way that you have with that I've seen in the world. I will never have a family the ones that I watched. I just want something to make me feel like less of a monster if I'm not alone. And we didn't get that. And I feel like that would have been such a quick thing to do, because the way that the movie goes about it, Jacob Elordi's creature so quickly asks for a companion. And we miss the whole part about trying to hold Victor accountable. And that infantilizes the creature more, because the creature has thoughts. The creature is eloquent. The creature can say all these beautiful things and make all these very strong points that seem so reasonable. And we do not see that as much in the movie, where it is easier to think that the creature is at some like lower level than human, when the book really is like, no, this creature thinks and feels and goes through all scopes of the human experience. He's just not quite human.
It's incredible the cultural impact that the 1931 Boris Karloff Frankenstein has had, that even in this movie, which is almost like a rebuttal of every Frankenstein adaptation that has come before it, we still have these remnants. We still have these remnants of this mindless and eloquent monster, where I wonder if a scene like you were just describing might have been on the cutting room floor of the edit of this movie, but they were like, well, you know, maybe even subconsciously, the creature is kind of a creature, so he doesn't need to have that deep of a thought.
I think, to continue playing the creature's advocate, because I am so obsessed with this movie, I think one of the things you said in that the creature, like, that was his demand because Victor had abandoned him and then he was chased out. Like, he hadn't had any positive experiences with a human yet. The only even kind of experience he had was with Victor, because everybody else chases him off immediately. Even in the book, the old man, he has like maybe a 30-second conversation with him before the family shows up. So that's almost non-existent in the book. In the movie, every time that he faces some sort of awful act by a human, it's immediately followed by a positive one. So Victor is awful to him on his birth, but then he meets Elizabeth, who shows him kindness. And then he escapes, and those men see him in the woods and they shoot him, but then he gets his moment with the old man. And it's like a season of months. Like, he spends time with them. And in the scene where he goes back to the tower, figures out who he is, and then comes back, and he's like devastated and talking to the old man. He's saying like, I am the child of a charnel house, which is such a banger line, by the way. But he's like doing all of this. And I don't think it's self-pity so much, just like devastation at learning where he comes from. But then the old man says to him, he's like, no, you are a good man, like, regardless of where you come from. He doesn't say that part, but that's like that's the point of that scene. And I think, like, for the rest of the movie, every time that he has a negative experience, it's immediately followed by a positive experience with somebody, and vice versa. the line, he's hiding in the mill gears when the wolves come to like attack the sheep, and he says the whole bit about, it occurred to me that, you know, the wolves didn't feel hatred for the sheep and the hunter didn't feel hatred for the wolf, but it seemed like violence was inevitable. I feel like that was sort of the address for why he's not more harsh on Victor in asking for a companion. It seemed, to me at least, it read like that was him accepting that humanity is multifaceted, and you will meet some people that are just bad people and you will meet some that are good. I think in the book, part of why he's so angry is because all he has experienced is negative humanity. And from him, like, he's just existing. Like, he doesn't feel all of that rage in the beginning. So, I don't know. I feel like that's part of it. And I still understand you guys being a little bit disappointed that he wasn't more fleshed out. That's fair. I just think I agree with you that it was probably more of a fleshed out scene at some point that might have gotten cut.
There is something else that I want to talk about that is a little bit of a topic change. And it's about Elizabeth's relationship with the creature in this movie. There is something about it that while Elizabeth is maybe given a little more agency and she is a little more fleshed out in the movie than what she is given in the books, I can understand why book Elizabeth is read a little bit flat, but she's also not really relevant to the plot in the book at all. In the movie, I think that they try to make her into this, not a large piece of the puzzle, but a more significant piece of the puzzle as far as her sort of empathy towards the creature from the very beginning. There is something about it that does not strike the perfect chord in me. I think that Mia Goth plays Elizabeth exactly the way that she was probably written to be played, and I think that her performance of it was wonderful. But what she was given to work with, I think it's not as progressive as maybe I think that it could have been, as far as like she's just a woman that now like loves a creature, but we don't really understand why. And not to say that you don't need a reason to love life and acknowledge life, and I'm not saying that the love was romantic, but like that's kind of all she gets. She gets to be this person that is thrown into these marriages and just wants the creature to be happy too, and she's like just this token that appreciates the creature when no one else does.
I think I would disagree with that, but also add on to it. I think that as far as just her being there to appreciate the creature is not even really born until like halfway through the movie. So we get like, I love the scene where she's arguing with Victor when she first meets him about the merits of war and the ideology behind it. I felt like that was a really powerful monologue to introduce her character with, because it shows that depth of thinking and criticism for the society around her. To expand on it, I think, yes, she was meant to be like an empathetic figure for the creature, but there's also so much biblical imagery and references in this movie, partially because I think it's impossible to talk about Frankenstein without biblical reference, but also because I know Del Toro has a Catholic background and he did do some intentional things. Like in the beginning of the movie, Victor is always surrounded by circles, like behind him, representing halos that get more and more distorted as the movie goes on, that kind of thing. But Elizabeth talks about like yearning for something more pure and more like just on a higher level than what exists. And I think it's rooted in this yearning for something divine, something closer to akin to like a godly Jesus relationship. And I think it's also such an interesting take with the creature, the fact that he can't die. I think there's such a cool theory online going around that Elizabeth says, arguing it with Victor, that perhaps in the creature's pure being, our creator was able to breathe life into his lungs directly. The original sin with Adam and Eve is what biblically like created death. Like it is what separated humanity from God, allows death to exist. If the creature did not come from Adam's line, which he didn't, it could be an explanation as to why he can't die. And at that point, he's above humanity in terms of like connection with God. And I think that's why her character is so drawn to him. It's the purity of it at like a base level, but I think on a higher storytelling level, it's like a biblical story playing out.
That I think I might be able to buy it, because I knew that there was something nagging at me about the way that Elizabeth was portrayed in the movie. And I think part of it was because in the beginning, she does seem like this very like passionate, fully fleshed out human with her own like desires. And then I feel like after the creature is introduced, she kind of falls flat for me, but I love the take on her seeking out something pure subconsciously, and the creature being that closest thing to purity that we don't have in humanity. I do think that I appreciate that a little bit more, but also, is she too good for humans? That's what I want to know.
Sorry, it's an immediate thought. I have to get out because I'll forget it. No is the answer. She's not too good. And in talking about this, it's made me realize the point of one of the scenes that I could not understand up until right now. The butterfly, when she's with Victor, she talks about in the scene where like they confront each other, she tells him she doesn't want him, whatever. She's talking about the butterfly, about how unique it is. It's white blood, multiple eyes, all of this, that it's not awarded the beauty of choice, like that whole thing. But the scene before it, they're catching the butterflies, and Victor presents her with the choice of, should we let her go or should we trap her? And she very like deviously is like, let's take her. Like, she's so excited about it, but it's confining a creature that is meant to live outdoor. Like, it's cruel. And it's such a weird moment for her character. And up until right now, I was so confused about it, but it's because she is longing for this thing, because this sense of purity, because she can't find it, because it is meant to solidify that when she meets the creature, her amazement and her sense of, I found what I'm looking for. Every interaction that he has with an animal in this movie, they like willingly come up to him. It's nice. They have no sense of fear related to him because he is better than a human, because he is closer to that sense of innocence, that sense of purity, because he is more biblical of a character, because he's not tainted by sin and death. And that scene, I think, is meant to show that. He never once has an ill interaction with an animal in this movie, while one of the only ones we see with her is her trapping something that's meant to be free. And I think that's why she is so taken with him.
So we all need a creature in our lives, and maybe that would save humanity, because I don't know if the men are doing it right now. No offense, Gabriel, no offense. As a representation of mankind, what do you have to say for yourself?
Wow, that was quite the stage to put me on. I just wanted to talk about, like, themes and stuff, but okay, I guess I have to defend men now. Thanks for that. All right, there's a lot that got covered here. So, first of all, when I did some research on Del Toro for this movie, I was actually fascinated that Victor Frankenstein himself is kind of Del Toro's take on Crypto Bros. And that's not even me like making stuff up. That's actually an explicit thing that he stated. And that's really fascinating to like think about in the context of this movie. Because it's like, yeah, I guess Victor is kind of haphazardly destroying the world with a thing that he doesn't understand. So yeah, if you want me to defend men in the context of this movie, I don't think there's much I can say. What I will say, though, to go back to an earlier point, is that I actually, I quite liked Elizabeth in this movie. And I know this is going to be weird given the demographic of this podcast. I actually really liked the romance aspect of what Elizabeth contributed, because of how unspoken and like nebulous the romance was. Her interactions with the creature were undefined. Like, there are so many ways you could look at it: romantic, motherly. I mean, frankly, I'm dancing around it, but there's an element of it that is Oedipal, that she both represents this creature's its mother and its lover, but none of that is like explicitly stated, and it is all just the moments in which they look at each other, and it allows the audience to like create that themselves. And I think there's a lot of moments of this movie that I think are doing telling instead of showing. I mean, my big example that I think a lot of people are talking about online is William being like, Victor, you are the monster. And, I can rag on those, but I actually think the romantic element was very beautifully and tactfully done.
Well, I think part of that too is that I know it's kind of a more modern verbal take, but it's always true. Like, soulmates, the idea of somebody that you are meant to have in your life, it's not necessarily always a romantic relationship. There are plenty of platonic relationships and familial relationships that are so integral to somebody feeling complete in the way that they could with a romantic partner. And I think that was kind of the point. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying. The creature didn't want a girlfriend or a wife. Like, he just wanted somebody to spend his life with in whatever capacity that looked like. And I think that's why that relationship was left intentionally vague, because it wasn't about it wasn't about the label that they had for each other or how they exactly saw each other, but it was the point that they saw each other.
I mean, you're not going to at this moment, I can understand what you are saying, and I don't necessarily be like, I saw that, but I also only watched the movie once. And both of you, I mean, Gabriel, I know you've watched it twice, and Ansley, you've watched it 3 times now. I fully believe that this is the sort of movie that you have to watch more than once, and that you're going to take something new from it every single time. This is the sort of movie where I have so many thoughts about it that I know are going to change just upon a second watch. And I'm excited to see my opinions change, because I know that I'm going to watch this movie again. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind. But yeah, right now I'm not necessarily on Team Elizabeth and the creature, but you are convincing me that it is definitely there for a reason, and it needs to be there.
I think to that point too, Joseph, it's definitely a movie that you have to watch more than once to fully get it, I think. And not even that I get it, but that you get more each time you watch it. And I think for me, there was like no better example than the leaf scene, which I know is wild because it's so popular online. But the first time I watched it, I was still so mad that they had changed so many things from the book. Like, I didn't understand yet where we were going with it, that I kind of missed it. And then the second time I watched it, I think the leaf scene is such an emotionally impactful moment that, again, just speaks to the idea that the creature is pure and above our human ideals of goodness. Because the scene is him. This is literally like his second time seeing Elizabeth, and he is like a week old, maybe, at this point, and he gives her the leaf like it's a gift. He literally only still knows one word, and he can see the value in giving somebody something and sharing something with no sense of value in the gift itself. Like, it's a leaf, but it's the act of gift giving that's so impactful. And this idea that, like, you need other people in your life, you need to share with the people in your life, and that you can derive joy from that.
Like, I do have complaints about this movie, and I brought up a couple of them, but I think something worth remembering is that this is the film that Guillermo del Toro has been trying to make for 50 years, and he finally did it. And I think this film achieves so much in just visual language. I think it achieves so much that it gets the highest accolade of any movie, that you could watch it on mute. Like, you could mute this movie and just still be taken aback by it. There's so many examples that I could bring up of just incredible crafted visual language. I'm just going to bring up one that I thought was really neat. Was in the beginning, when Victor is at his hearing and he is playing around with the corpse to show that galvanism can reanimate body parts. He has the corpse catch a ball, and then he throws away the ball afterward. Who catches it but Harland? We don't know this yet, but spoilers, but Harland has syphilis and wants to be turned into a creature so that he can beat death. And that is communicated visually right there in that moment, even though the viewer doesn't know it yet, that Victor is cheating death, and the thing that catches the ball to showcase that he can cheat death is the corpse. Then Harlan is the next person to catch it. And that's literally just one singular moment of a movie that is doing those kinds of things moment to moment to moment nonstop. And it's gorgeous.
That's so fantastic. And to keep harping on this point, I didn't notice that. And now when I watch it for the 4th time, it's going to be all that I think about in that scene. That's so good. I think to that point too, of just other visual cue scenes, the scene where Harlander is like showing him the Evelyn tables and The Secret of Life opens with him painting that young woman with the peach. And at first I didn't get it. I thought it was just like a kind of artsy moment to the vibe. But ultimately, the scene where Victor learns the secret of life that ultimately leads to his downfall is opened by a woman eating a forbidden fruit. Like, the moment of separation. So I agree with you. But I also think even beyond like visual storytelling, just the visuals of this movie were gorgeous. Like, there were so many times where we cut to a different scene and I genuinely like gasped at how beautiful it was. And normally I wouldn't comment on that because we are in an age of CGI and like green screen, but so much of this movie was practical effects and handcrafted. I know there's so many interview clips of Jacob Elordi talking about his 11 hours in the makeup chair for the prosthetics, but also like the ship was a real ship that they had on set. Costumes were handmade, I think, for everybody in the main cast. Like there's so much craft that went into it beyond just the storytelling and moving the plot forward in those moments, that just visually it's so pretty to look at.
I can't get out of here without talking about the fact that Charles Dance was in this movie and he's incredible. And he only had 10 minutes less than that of screen time, and I was just captivated. God, what an incredible actor.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. It was great.
The casting choice for the whole movie was great. I mean, not to diminish Charles Dance's like significance in the first less than 10 minutes, but the entire choice of casting I think was so well done. And I definitely agree with you, Ansley, say that Jacob Elordi is catapulted into this whole new type of actor from his performance in Frankenstein. It is so different from anything else that I have seen him in before. I know that he has leaned into artsier roles, but it has always kind of been like douchey bad boy type roles. Even in like Saltburn, which is such another visually stunning movie with weird themes and characters, he's still kind of like a douchey bad boy. And seeing him like this is so, it took me aback. And if I didn't know it was Jacob Elordi, I almost don't know if I would have seen that.
I genuinely forgot it was Jacob Elordi for the first like 45 minutes that the creature's on scene after his birth, because I think it's also just like an acting note that acting is so much more than delivering your lines and like being able to cry on camera. His physicality when the creature is first born in Victor's bedroom, like that scene, I believed it. Like I really thought that he was moving that way because he couldn't do anything else. It's so good. I fully believe, like, all of the Oscar noms, he's only doing top billed, top rated, like movies of a generation from here. I completely fell in love.
I can't stop thinking about the fact that we got this, and now Guillermo del Toro, by his own admission, only has like one goal left. And so his goals in Hollywood were to make a Pinocchio movie, to make a Frankenstein movie, and the last one is to make an adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness. And that's it. That's his final thing that he needs to do on this earth. And if this was like the visual output that we got from his Frankenstein, I am just like seething, or not seething, but like I'm foaming at the mouth for like what his adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft is going to inevitably be.
I think too, just on a more general movie industry note, I think we're being so well fed with like adaptations of classics that are well done and aren't like lazy. I think because it was only like 5 or so years ago that I feel like a lot of people were like, we don't have any new movies. Like all of these are remakes or animated that are turning into live action or stuff like that. And so I think with Frankenstein, we're sort of launching, or I guess really with Nosferatu last year, we've launched this new era of remade, reimagined classics. And I'm so excited to see where it goes. Because next year we're getting Christian Bale's Bride movie. So it's another Frankenstein, but I'm so interested to see how that one goes. But then also Robert Eggers is doing his werewolf movie, and I am beyond excited for that. Really just to see how they're going to play it out, because I know he's already said it's the 1200s for the setting in that one. They're going to be speaking Old English, and I don't know exactly yet how that's going to work. But it's the 1200s. It's before silver bullets. So how are they going to kill this werewolf? Like, because that's such a big part of the lore. And that's what I mean when I say like reimagined classics. Not just the same stories over and over again, but something new to it. I'm so excited.
I also just love that in a world where we might be leaning towards anti-intellectualism a lot more, and we might be concerned about the upcoming generations and their ability to read, that movies like this are going to bring people back to the classics inevitably. And that, I think, is always a good thing. And I'm excited to have an excuse to continue reading classics as they are adapted.
My 4-year-old brother was walking around the living room while I was watching it with my mom. And at one point in the movie, something is said about the creature being the monster, like in the room with Victor. And Carter looked at me like, no, the other guy's the bad guy. the 4-year-old can get it. I think the next generation is so solid.
Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that out of the 3 hosts here, Gabriel, the white male, is most qualified to talk about romance literature. And let me tell you, you're right. So, if you're ever curious about how we got from Fabio on the cover, bodice rippers, even before that, we're talking Jane Austen, even before that, what do ancient cultures have to say about love and fiction, all the way to alphas, omegas, to the omega verse. Is omega last?
Omegas are at like the bottom of the food chain. They have to submit to an alpha.
Right, okay. And then there's a sigma grind set, which we'll get into. I digress. Okay, hey. If you're curious how we got from Austen to the Omega verse, then Gabriel's going to take you through it. Episode 2 of Story Stack. I'll see you there.